the extended director's cut, Batman. This is going to be terrible. Did someone say, Batman, is this a league? We're kind of a league, if you will. Friends? Super friends? I mean, we do get along super, but none of us are particularly special.
I am.
Debatable.
Either way, we're hanging out, talking about whatever seems interesting at the time. Don't say we didn't warn you. If this is your first time in the Hall of Terrible, hi, my name is Robert.
And I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
So what's interesting in the Hall of Terrible this week? Zack Snyder's Josstice League. Is it an overcorrection of the Joss Whedon version of Josstice League? Is it the perfect course correction? Or is it meh? I guess we'll find out today as we discuss. Back in our 4th episode and our review of DC's fandom event, where this was all announced to us, we did talk a little bit about our background in DC. So we won't spend too much time on that, but a refresher wouldn't be too bad. I'm really more of a casual fan. If you want to compare it to me being a fan of Marvel, I'm more of a casual fan of DC. I know the majority of the characters and some of their lore. I'm not super into them like I am the Marvel characters, but I keep up, if you will, for most things. I did watch the Batman cartoon in the 90s and did enjoy it very much with Mark Hamill's Joker. But again, not super into DC.
Yeah, I basically also started with the 90s Batman series, which of course leads into all the other, Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, DC stuff. You got Batman Beyond, you got Superman animated, Justice League. It just kind of all went out from there. I didn't read a ton of their comics. I think the run of comics I enjoyed the most was the 52 series that came out in the mid 2000s. That was pretty neat. Other than that, everybody knows the Death and Return of Superman. I think I read through some of that because everybody did at one point.
If everybody jumped off a cliff, James, would you jump too?
I mean, that's, you've got to also wonder, how high is this cliff? These are the important questions before you jump off it. But yeah, I mean, I've always been more Marvel sort of as well. But I still enjoy DC. I'm sure we all have watched through the Nolan Batman movies and probably enjoyed at least most of it. I know the third one is all really mixed, especially with its ending. But of course, you've also got the Tim Burton Batman movies, the Joel Schumacher ones, Forever. I enjoyed Forever. Maybe I'm just thinking of that out of nostalgia. Batman and Robin is a little more, you have to think of it in a specific way. But I'm not going to get into that here because that'd be taking us on a completely different path. But yeah, I enjoyed DC well enough. I even saw the Whedon version of Justice League in the theaters, probably opening month, maybe not weekend, and thought it was okay at the time.
I probably have even less exposure to DC as a whole than these two nerds. I kind of watched the Batman animated series, and I definitely watched Batman Beyond because, oh my god, that was a great show. But like the Justice League animated series and whatever else they were just talking about was all in one ear and out the other. I do like the Nolan Batman trilogy, especially Dark Knight.
Well, I mean, who doesn't love Dark Knight? Okay, maybe
Right.
Love is a strong word, but I mean, even if you just take Heath Ledger's performance as Joker there.
Yeah. But outside of that, I really am so sick of hearing about Batman.
Wait a minute. You're sick of hearing about me, Batman?
Yeah.
What did I ever do to you?
You existed.
I'm depressed now.
Now, to be fair, you've got varying degrees of good and bad Batman.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the Lego version isn't terrible.
True. The Lego version is good. There are good versions of Batman out there. But what I'm saying is that there's so much Batman content out there. It's like I only within the past couple of years learned about the Lantern Corps and how there's 7 of them or however what the number is up to and what they all do. And like the orange one for greed, there can only be one orange lantern at a time because it's just how greedy they are. And things like that I would love to learn more about. But it's like every other year, what do we get? More Batman, Batman.
Exactly.
I mean, fun fact, there is a CGI Green Lantern series that I heard wasn't bad. Never watched it myself personally. I think it is on HBO Max, but don't hold me to that 100%.
You know, Nathan, you could always just watch the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern.
At this point, I'd rather rewatch that than see another Batman thing out there.
I find that extremely offensive.
That's okay.
Now, maybe we just need to leave that as, we do have another Batman coming out with Robert Pattinson in the Batman, and the trailer we had for that seemed like it might be interesting.
Excuse me. Robert Pattinson cannot be Batman. I'm Batman.
Well, maybe you need to get on the phone to his agent and kind of hash that out.
I'm going to suspend him from a cliff and tell him I'm Batman. Did I tell you that I'm Batman? Because I'm Batman. So we'll move on so we can get to our review proper. But real quick, 2-3 sentence summary of, I guess, or real quick summarization. What did you think of Joss Whedon's Justice League? Did you like it, not like it? Just a real quick blurb about what you thought about it.
All right. Well, first we need to establish we've got the three of us here. Number one, out of the three of us, who saw it in the theaters when it first came out 4 years ago?
Not me.
We've got myself.
Nathan hasn't seen it.
I saw it, but not in theaters. Sorry.
All right. So then the second question being, has anybody seen it within the last couple weeks to a month to prepare for the Zack Snyder version?
I did not see it in theaters. I saw it first at home when it first came, streaming. And then I watched it the day before the Snyder Cut released. Again, to refresh my memory on it because it had been so long. I did not. I remember not enjoying it very much the first time that I saw it, and but the second time I watched it, I kind of I was trying to remember how I felt and thinking, oh, it wasn't as bad as I think that I thought it was when I first saw it. So I mean, it was flawed, but it was all right. I mean, yeah.
I've only seen it one time, and it was within the past year when it became available on HBO Max or streaming. And I think it was even before the Snyder Cut was announced for DC's fandom. Could be wrong. I don't remember. Actually, it's been within the year that I've seen it, and I've only seen it the one time. And similar to Robert's second viewing, it's just like, that was fun. It was a nice ride. As long as you turn off your brain and just enjoy the action and the comedy for what it is and just kind of go with the flow. Like, I never really thought they were trying to be too serious with the interconnected continuity between all the DC films they've been trying to push out, and just took a face value for the movie that it was, which was a long introduction to Justice League that will probably never get touched again.
But now, did either of you also go back and rewatch Man of Steel and Batman v Superman to prepare for this?
Nope.
I had only seen Batman v Superman once, not in theaters, again, when it came into streaming. Man of Steel, I did see in theaters, and I have watched it probably 2, maybe 3 times since then. I do remember watching Man of Steel at least within the last, I'm going to say 6 months or so. I believe I rewatched it because I had seen another YouTube channel do a review on it. Cinema Sins did their whole thing, everything wrong with Man of Steel. And so then that just got me in the mood to see it again for myself. But not leading up to this, I did not sit down and watch either of those two.
Well, anybody who's been paying attention to our last few episodes, our terrible times, I've gone back and rewatched all 3 of those within the last month. So I have a context for understanding that Whedon's version of Justice League doesn't really fit tonally with the Man of Steel and Batman v Superman that we have laid out by Snyder. Like, especially now that we have a 4-hour Snyder version of Justice League compared to, Whedon's version isn't bad independently so much as it doesn't really fit with the other Snyderverse movies. Whedon basically did what would have been expected of him. Studio mandated, we want it cut down to 2 hours. Cool. And oh, by the way, maybe Avengers it up a little. So we got a little bit more of, the Marvel type humor and all that stuff. Which, if that's what you want, cool. But a lot of people were probably heading into Justice League 2017 expecting the next Snyderverse movie, and that's not quite what they got. So while I don't entirely agree with all of the tactics that maybe the internet was doing to try to force a Snyder cut and eventually get it, I understand on some level why they wanted to see what Snyder's version of a Justice League was going to be. I don't think any of them expected it to be 4 hours long, though. 3 hours, maybe like the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman, but oh boy, 4 hours. That was a long time.
Yeah, we'll get into that now. Let's move on then with our review proper of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And we'll start with the story. Now, if you're here, you've probably seen Joss Whedon's Justice League. There are some story bits that are different. We're not going to really.
Whoa. Some.
There
Again,
are some.
we're talking 2 hour 2017 cut versus a 4 hour 2021 cut.
Correct. But if you let me get on to what I thought, the story is somewhat different, but with the addition of Darkseid aside, there is not a wholly different story going on here between the two versions, which is what I was trying to get at. But let's talk about what we thought about the story. Who wants to take it away?
So on a basic level, yeah, the story is similar to the 2017 version in the sense that you've got 3 MacGuffins that everybody is trying to capture, and you've got a big bad that the Justice League are trying to fight, who's trying to take over the world. The action beats are more or less all the same. It's where all the character beats, that is where a lot of the this extended cut happens. But you're right. The main, like, getting from point A to point B, got to go get the MacGuffins, that all stays the same. But we have an extra 2 hours worth of we get an expansion of every single character. Most especially, as the internet has pointed out, Cyborg gets a ton more versus the Whedon cut.
Yes. And I agree with that too. I think that's one of, probably put that on the tally for first things of improvement in the Snyder versus Whedon cut of this. I did enjoy that Cyborg did get an arc especially this stood out a lot to me because I had watched the Whedon cut literally the night before. And so it stood out to me that Cyborg was played a very minimal role in the Whedon version, but then plays a pretty prominent role in the Snyder cut. And I did appreciate that we got more of his backstory and that he played a more significant role, that he was necessary to prevent the mother boxes from synchronizing and then enlist the help of Superman to do it. Not that Superman could have shown up and done it himself, like it's kind of shown in the Whedon version. If anything, though, it made me feel like Cyborg really deserved his own movie. Like, it made me want to see that backstory of the accident and everything play out in its own film, because it made me want to learn more about him and what his abilities are and what he did before he became Cyborg and exactly how the experiments played out that turned him into what he is now. Made me really want his own standalone film. And that kind of happened with with the smaller characters we get introduced, because Wonder Woman has her own film and Aquaman has his own film now. But same thing with Flash. Flash is the standout character for me, not to jump to the character section now, but his story and his abilities and everything in this movie were making me super, super excited for his own movie coming hopefully pretty soon. But yeah, I did like that Cyborg got more. Thinking of things that stood out, it's story-wise that got added here. We get just a little bit more time with everyone. Aquaman gets a little bit more time with his mentor, trying to basically convince him to get off his butt and help, which I thought was a nice touch. There were all those, again, earlier when I'm saying the story is fundamentally the same, I'm not trying to knock it in any way. All the little things here and there with Cyborg and Flash and Aquaman kind of just added that little extra bit to the story to make it a little more engaging, teach us a little bit more about these characters. It made them feel like a little bit less thrown together last minute, like they were clamoring for that Avengers moment that they didn't get in the Whedon version. Comes together a lot better in this version because of that little bit of extra time. I don't know that it deserved 4 hours of time, like James was saying, but the improvements of the story were good for me here. I liked them.
I think the problem with the Snyder Cut is that there was so much character introduction that needed to be done to help explain why they would all fight together as a team, which in the Snyder Cut got fleshed out and was much more believable than the Whedon cut. But again, it made it a much longer movie than it needed to be. I think Cyborg's movie should have been a separate story because there was so much to tell about what he went through and his family, and then how both of his parents are doctors and outstanding members of their field, and just the family tensions they have between his dad not coming to the football games and being as supportive as he seemed to be, and that kind of stuff. So I think Cyborg should have been a separate movie before Justice League came out. I don't think Flash needed to be. I think what they did was they had Flash kind of be the perspective of the audience of being, wow, all these superheroes that I get to howl around with now and just kind of be with, and they're my friends and whatnot, and I can actually be part of this team. I think the audience was able to latch onto that perspective. And so he didn't need as much of an introduction. I think it was succinct enough to fit within the confines of the Justice League film. And I think it worked really well for the Snyder Cut. And then Aquaman, I kept forgetting he was in the movie, to be honest.
He wasn't your personal dude, bro?
Sure.
My man.
I can't seem to ever I saw Aquaman, wasn't impressed with Aquaman in the Whedon version. He's a little better in this one, still not very impressed with him. I don't know if it's Jason Momoa or his direction with the character. I don't know, he just seems like too much of a jerk to me than I actually imagined Aquaman to be. Like, I know that there's like the meme version of Aquaman that we expect to see kind of, but like when I think of the real world DCEU version of Aquaman that we were going to get, this, standoffish loner, hate the world, I'm not going to get involved, I'm not an Atlantean, but I have all these powers and whatever kind of dismissive attitude. I don't know. I just don't. Feels weird. I don't like it.
It's funny because for me, Aquaman and Whedon's Justice League, I liked the best. And then in Snyder Cut, I liked second best. And then in his own movie, I didn't like him at all. I did not like that movie at all. Let me just put that out there. I liked, there were moments in the Whedon Cut, the original release in 2017, that I thought felt really good. It portrayed his character better than what they did in the Snyder Cut, where they didn't include those moments. Like, I remember there was a part where they were on the crew transport thing just before they're flying off to fight Steppenwolf, and he has some kind of powwow with Flash or some other member, and it felt natural. It felt like it belonged there and everything like that, and then that wasn't included. So sorry, I forget what it was said, because again, I saw the movie a year ago. They didn't include it in the Snyder Cut, and then like I said, I kept forgetting he was supposed to be in the movie. He was introduced very early on, rejected Batman's to join the team, and that's fine. That's his character. You don't have to explain his motivations. It's not like his motivations ever get explained anyways. But like I said, I kept forgetting he was in the movie because he wasn't used at all. Like, he was muscle to use every now and again, but like he never had a purpose like Cyborg did, like Flash did, like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman did. He was there just to kind of lend a helping hand. And I think they could have played that a lot better to help make it feel like an actual team coming together.
I'm with you there. I think the scene you might be thinking of is when he's sitting on the Lasso of Truth.
Yes, that's what it was.
And he's kind of spilling his guts. And I remember watching the movie, the Whedon Cut, and watching that scene and thinking, this is definitely a Whedon moment that I feel like is going to get cut. And they did cut it.
Well, yeah, they basically cut everything that Whedon did. Any of his dialogue things, there is, for being an extension from a 2-hour to a 4-hour movie, it's not so much that, because there are whole sequences that we did not get that was in the Whedon Cut. The very beginning with Superman being interviewed by a couple of kids, not there. Introduction of Batman as he's hunting parademons through Gotham, stringing up some random criminals to draw out their fear, not there. So it's not even so much as turning a 2 hour into a 4 hour. It's like, I don't know, maybe like an hour and a half, an hour 45 Whedon version turned into a 4 hour Snyder cut. Nothing of Whedon survived as far as I could tell.
Yeah. But I mean, if you go back and look at all of those, I'm curious if you went back and look at everything they cut, were they all necessary? Like using some of the examples that you brought up, the Superman stuff in the beginning, I could do without it. I was actually better off without it. The stuff of him hunting the parademons, I mean, using the fear to attract them, yeah, sure, but I didn't miss it, but I did miss Aquaman sitting on the Lasso of Truth. I thought that wasn't too.
Yeah, but
Joss Whedon-y
again, that's a textbook Whedon thing. Like, it doesn't need to be in there if it's going to be a Snyder film,
I guess. But then there was jokes like, "What's your superpower?"
That there you go, jokes. This is a Snyder film.
Yeah,
he has no time for jokes.
But there is a point. There's some of them that are still in there. Like there's when he's with Flash and they're getting in the car and he's like, "What's your superpower?" He's like, "I'm rich."
Mm-hmm.
Like that felt like a Whedon joke, and it stayed in the film. And I was like very surprised to actually see that stuck around. I was like, "Oh, I wonder if they're going to do something else. Are they going to change the line?" And they left it in, but then removed the Lasso of Truth scene. That was more of a. And my point is that the Lasso of Truth scene, while being jokey, was actually a character development piece for Aquaman because he plays it off like he knows what's going on. He like kind of dismisses it like, oh, he wasn't really telling the truth, but he knows he was telling the truth and kind of just, I don't know, passively aggressively dismisses the fact that actually happened, which was a character development moment for him that I felt should have stayed in the film. But whatever. Last bit of story thing here, though, that is very different is the epilogue, because we didn't get that at all in the Whedon version. And so in the epilogue,
sort of. In the Whedon version, we still got some voiceover, as all the characters were off doing their own thing. And we had, I think the theatrical version for Whedon ended with the Superman, chest reveal thing. So we still had that in this epilogue. So we had that in the Whedon version. The Whedon version also had I think it was either mid or end credits. I forget specifically, the scene with Luthor on the boat with Deathstroke, which is completely changed here. They still meet on a boat, but the dialogue is all different. In the Snyder version, it's all a setup for what would have been a solo Ben Affleck Batman movie fighting Deathstroke, as opposed to the Whedon version where it's just a jokey trying to get in a line of, "Oh, we need a league of our own."
Yeah, but I guess maybe it's not the epilogue, but what I'm talking about is the Flash
nightmare stuff?
future, the nightmare sequence.
Oh, yeah, the nightmare stuff. Whedon, I guess, did not want that.
Yes. And that's the biggest difference in the story that I'm talking about that we didn't get in the Whedon version. And that was something that I thought was a amazing addition to this film. Because if we're paying attention, I mean, for me, if you're paying attention to Batman v Superman, we get that Flash, right, of that nightmare sequence in that movie. And then we kind of get some of that here where Darkseid says he's going to do this the old way. And then we get this flash forward to a potential future. And then we get a flash back like, oh, it was all a dream. But what it did was it made me buy in to more of the Snyderverse. It made me want to see that movie, that the conflict in this movie is not over. Because a lot of these movies, especially like the Avengers films, they all get wrapped up in a nice little bow, and phase 1 is over, time to move on to the next phase. And phase 2 is done, Ultron is gone, time to move on to the next thing. And then phase 3 is over, Thanos is dead, dusted, time to move on to the new one. And I like that Josstice League ended differently than Marvel does with Avengers, which is you saw the big bad and you only got a taste of him. He's not gone. His plan is not thwarted. we might see him again, and this is what that may look like if he comes back. And I thought that was a really neat sequence that I particularly enjoyed.
What do you get during the mid-credits of the first Avengers movie, Robert? Thanos.
Yes, I'll do it myself.
Sure.
No, that I believe that was at the end of Age of Ultron.
Oh, okay.
The mid-credits, yes, was also a Thanos in first Avengers, but it was just a whole like, smile, I'm Thanos. So you still get a tease of a big bad.
Sure.
There's not a bow on this, on Avengers, on Marvel stuff. They're always teasing towards their next thing.
I'll give you that.
The only thing that you can say maybe not as much is the end of Endgame, because it's the end of all the Infinity Stone stuff that they had been building for 20 plus movies. But even then, you still have a hint of like Captain America passing off his shield, leading us into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier stuff that's coming up.
Then call it an extended mid-credit scene if you want. But I'm talking about, like, you see the tease at the end of Thanos, but it's largely forgettable for most people. The casual fan isn't, like, they're saying, oh, who's that guy? But a month later, they're not thinking about Thanos anymore. Ultron's dead, and they're just going to wait for the next Avengers movie to come out. People that, if they were to see this in theaters, or the casual audience watching this film is seeing that and going, holy crap, what the hell is going on there? Give me more. I think, anyway.
So there's a couple of different ways to look at this as far as Snyder version. We don't need the Marvel stuff anymore. When Snyder knew he was going to do this, apparently he wanted to make it as it was going to be in 2017. Hence why we still get all these teases that theoretically, if he had just wanted to give us the movie, not have any kind of teases, let it just stand on its own, which is maybe what he should have done, because there's no guarantee that there's going to be a continuation of a Snyderverse. As of right now, he's not, contracted to do anything else for DC. And it's hard to tell whether he anticipates doing anything else. I think the day after Snyder version came out, he went and laid out what would have been in his second and third version of a Justice League movie. And it is some really weird stuff, but maybe we'll talk about it later. But he probably should have just kind of let this stand on its own and did not need to go back and film another nightmare sequence and tease upon tease for what's coming out.
I enjoyed it. All right, so let us digress from the story and move on to the cast and characters so we don't end up with our own 4 and some odd hour review of a 4 and some odd hour indulgence cut. So
you are putting chapter titles up, right?
Sure. Let's say we are. So cast and characters. Let's run through the gamut here. We'll just do the core 6 Justice League members. We've got Henry Cavill playing Superman. Got Ben Affleck playing Batman. We've got Gal Gadot playing Wonder Woman or Diana Prince. We've got Ezra Miller playing Flash. We've got Ray Fisher playing Cyborg. And we have Jason Momoa playing Aquaman.
That is all of them.
Carry
yes.
the 2, divide by 3. I think that's 6. So.
But what about the Martian Manhunter?
Oh, yeah.
He's not one of the core 6, but we can get to him eventually.
Just like the movie. Ha-cha-cha.
Superman, for me, I liked him more in the Snyder Cut than I did the Whedon version. I think his return was played out a little bit better, less jokey when he's on the farm with Lois. I liked it. I wish I would have seen more of his conversation with Alfred. That passed by a little too quickly. Like, they made a point that, like, he was gonna stop there. Like, Batman even tells Alfred, or Bruce Wayne tells Alfred, he's gonna come. And then he shows up and he's like, he told me you would come. And then the next thing you know, Batman is off helping them. And it's like, well, what did they talk about? Like, you set up a whole thing and then you didn't do a thing. But otherwise, I liked him a lot better in this than I did in the Whedon version.
Well, yeah, because, in the Whedon version, you had that weird smudge above his nose, that mustache smudge, right?
Mm-hmm. You don't have to do that. I can just Photoshop a mustache on you.
Yeah. The point being, pretty much everything that we had in the Snyder Cut for Superman was the stuff that Snyder filmed. Anything in the Whedon version, you had that terrible CGI because he had a mustache contractually obligated from, I think it was a Mission Impossible movie,
Yes.
whatever, doesn't
All
matter.
out. It's a good movie.
So Whedon had to film him with that, and the CGI had to go in and try to erase it, and it did not end up great. So at least in this version, Superman doesn't have to deal with that.
I was thankful that when Superman was revived in the Snyder Cut, that the fight between him and Flash was a little more elongated. Because I loved how in the Whedon cut, the original in 2017, that you can see Superman is tracking Flash with his eyes, and that just gave me chills. Like both times I watched it, and then in the Snyder Cut, they extend out the fight that where they're actually fighting at that super speed, and like the whole world is slow around them, and they're just kind of like going at regular speed and fighting. I was just like, oh, this is so cool because this is going to show character development for Flash because now he has to learn how to fight and not just depend on being fast. So that way he can he'll learn how to like do blocks and kicks and that kind of stuff. And that's going to be so cool.
So you're saying a proper use of slow motion,
Sure. As opposed to an improper use of slow motion?
aka the rest of the movie.
Ah, yes, that is fair.
We'll get to that in the visuals.
Yeah. But I love that they kept that with Superman and that, like Robert mentioned, that he felt more in place in this movie, if that makes sense, in this version. Like he didn't seem like just a joke or just another MacGuffin they had to kind of like flesh out and get back together to save the day.
Yeah. There was also kind of like, in the way they played out, Lois showing up was not planned in the Snyder Cut like it was in the Whedon Cut. And I like that because it gave it this kind of like, you didn't know what was going to happen with Superman. Like before it was like, oh, we're going to bring Lois in. Don't worry, we've got a trump card and everything's going to be fine. He's going to join us. And here it's more up in the air. Like they don't know. Like even, I think it's even, I think they were saying something like, oh yeah, he's fine. He's himself. And I think it's Aquaman that says something along the lines of, no, did you see him? He looks confused. He left with her because he's not threatened by her. Like they were like, oh, you see, it's him because he left with Lois. And it's like, well, no, really, he left with her because he wasn't threatened by her. And so that left it more up in the air of, well, what is really going on with Superman? Is he back to normal? And they play that out when he's on the farm with Lois. He's not Clark Kent automatically. You see him kind of slowly building back to them, kind of regaining his memories and emotions and, building all of that back again. It's not just like, I see Lois, boom, I'm snapped out of it kind of deal. We're not getting
takes a while to wake up.
We're not getting a Martha moment with Lois kind of deal. We're getting a natural kind of rebirth of his personality and his memory and his emotion back again. And I thought that was played out better in this version. I too agree with you, Nathan, that the fight with Flash was much better in this one between the two of them. I also like that they cut out the race at the end of the movie between the two, mostly because what I liked about their fight is that while Flash is having to learn to actually like fight and stay ahead of him, he is able to stay ahead of him. And I like that they were trying to say Superman is fast, and it is eerie to see his eye tracking him, but it wasn't like Superman is so OP that he was able to just outright beat Flash kind of deal, which is the impression you kind of get in the Whedon version when they then throw the race at the end and they're basically neck and neck, or when they're saving the family from the town, which was also cut, thank God. And he's like, you go take care of the one family and I'm going to carry this whole damn building and also move as fast, if not faster than you are. So I like that they pull that out so that you're not left with this Flash isn't really that great because all he is fast, but so is Superman kind of thing.
But that brings up the weird thing of the weird thing compared the Snyder to the Whedon one is it gives Superman kind of less to do in that final battle. Like, I agree, the random Russian family Whedon put in there was really dumb and was not necessarily. But all that leaves Superman to do in the Snyder version is he comes in, blocks a hit from Steppenwolf, beats up on Steppenwolf for like 30 seconds. He's there when the portal opens up to Darkseid and Apocalypse, and that's about all he really does. I mean, I guess he tries to pull apart the Unity and the mother boxes, but he doesn't really do much.
Well, I get what you're saying, but I think there's something you're forgetting about, in that at the beginning of the film, when Superman dies again, left over from Batman v Superman, that the mother boxes, how they were like afraid to show themselves because there's a Kryptonian on Earth, and that once Superman dies and they realize he's no longer there, they're like, okay, we can do our mission and programming. So bringing him back to life was kind of a bit of a like a morale, not booster, but hit to their morale, so that maybe they didn't want to necessarily fight against another Kryptonian as much.
I don't think anybody could forget the umpteen number of shock waves from the death cry, which also then begs the question of, these mother boxes have been here for, I don't know, one of the Amazons maybe name checks it as like 5,000 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
Superman's only been on Earth for like, I don't know, what is he, like late 20s, early 30s, something like that? Why didn't the mother boxes do anything before then?
Kryptonians weren't the only other threat that was listed for the mother boxes. I think Lantern 4 was something as well.
You have the old gods.
Yeah.
So there might have been some other reasons there.
Yeah.
And not to go off too hard here, but only because you bring it up, and this should have come up kind of in the story section, is, we get this whole thing. Wonder Woman is telling the history of the mother boxes on Earth, because we do get a little bit of more explanation on that. She goes into this cave thing or whatever, and sees some stuff written on the wall that kind of gives you the history of Darkseid and the mother boxes and whatever, and the anti-life equation. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. But like, he's on Earth with the mother boxes for the anti-life equation, gets defeated, leaves tail between his legs, but then forgets that the anti-life equation and mother boxes are on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Was anybody else confused by that? Like, they really did paint it like, because Steppenwolf was like, I found the anti-life equation. It's here on Earth. And they're all in disbelief. Like, what do you mean it's there on Earth? And I'm like, you were there. You were literally conquering this planet, and then you got defeated and ran away to regather your forces. What do you mean you're surprised that's where it is?
The only thing I could think of to help explain that is, like, again, that wasn't really like a beat for beat retelling of how that all happened. It was just like an artist's interpretation of the queen on Wonder Woman's island. I forget all these names. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. So my thought is, maybe that version of Darkseid perished as he was leaving. Like, maybe he got so damaged he wasn't able to survive. But again, he's a multi-dimensional being. So just, and maybe he wasn't able to communicate, anti-life equation, this universe, this Earth, and he just, dies before he's able to communicate that to all the other Darkseids. Or maybe it was something to the effect of, I lost my other thought, what I was going to say about that. So I guess it's not important, because that's the one I just said is how
we just need to accept we cannot fill in the holes, and that's fine, and move on.
Yep, that's fair.
And we can still fault it for being not answering everything, mm-hmm. but move on.
Yeah.
So, Superman, check. Ben Affleck as Batman. Thoughts?
Well, hold on. So real quick, Superman, kind of use that as a chance to talk about any of his side characters. So we had his mom. We got a little bit more with her, sort of, until she turns into Martian Manhunter for one scene. But whatever. I think it's Diane Lane plays Martha Kent. Pretty good job. And the other one, we've got Lois Lane. You brought up her briefly. She's in mourning throughout most of this movie. She even gets her, own little sad song at the start, going to the memorial every single day until she's, talked out of it by Martha/Manhunter. And also the weird story decision that made me wonder, wait, what is the timing of this movie? She has a positive pregnancy test? Like, I guess I'm not really sure how far after Batman v Superman this is supposed to be set, because we don't really see any other, visual body signs that she might be that far along.
It might not have been very long, because they do kind of they've cut out the intro from the Whedon cut, where they're kind of showing the world falling apart, if you will, after Superman's death. We don't get any of that. So for all we know, it might have been a very short amount of time, maybe a month or two, maybe. He might not have been dead for very long. So, all right. So then Batman, I think he was fine. I didn't like him any better or worse than in the Whedon cut. Ben Affleck does a pretty good job. It's more of a Batman that I think I'd like to see. Like James mentioned earlier about, seeing Deathstroke at the end, and that, it kind of really gives us what we should have gotten, which was a solo Batman movie with Ben Affleck's Batman, and I forget this guy's name playing Deathstroke. Would have been a really cool movie to see, because I do like Ben Affleck's Batman. I don't hate him. I know Nathan doesn't want more Batman, but what the hell? Who cares about Nathan?
Yeah, no, he just plays a Batman who just is, feeling super guilty about his part, sort of, in Superman's death, and trying to gather all of his team of other heroes to, stop the ancient evil that's coming to take over the world. I don't know. He's fine. He's Ben Affleck. What do you expect?
I did like the relationship between Batman and Alfred, that it wasn't the same kind of like strictly butler, strictly master. They were more of a duo, more of a team working together to do things, and that Alfred was there to kind of help keep him in check and not, wear himself too thin.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the job of most Alfreds. Even the Alfred in the Nolan films kind of did that too.
Mm-hmm. But not to the extent that I felt that was portrayed in this version. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Well, I do like that this Alfred was also like more physically involved, kind of in like helping Batman develop his gauntlets, and working on the troop carrier with him and all that kind of stuff. I thought was pretty neat, giving him more to do than just the voice of reason. Since we're speaking about Batman, Jared Leto's Joker gets a small little appearance in the nightmare sequence. Did anybody need more of that Joker? I mean, I did like that it felt, at least to me, I only saw Suicide Squad once. It did feel different than that Joker to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was a standalone Batfleck film, that would have been a Joker I wouldn't have mind seeing. I didn't really have any issues with the Joker in this nightmare sequence. I thought he fit very well in that universe of the nightmare sequence taking place in. So I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I think I did read Snyder more or less said the only reason he brought in Jared Leto's Joker is because up to this point in all the Snyderverse movies, they had not really had much of a chance to do anything together. Like, I know Batman was briefly in Suicide Squad, but he doesn't really, actually interact or act with Joker. So he just kind of wanted to, for the fans, give them that opportunity to have the two of them play off of each other. And sure, all right. I still don't think that we needed this tease for something that will probably never happen.
All right. So next we've got Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman. Again, same here. Just as good as she was in the first movie. No, nothing to complain about here. She was good in the Whedon version. She's good in this version, and leagues better than she was in Wonder Woman 84.
But now she's got extra R-rated ragdoll bad guy action.
I will say this.
Splat.
I did not enjoy, just like in the Joss Whedon version, the majority of her action in the beginning of the film, where she's fighting off that random terrorist group trying to bomb a bunch of children for no apparent reason. That fight sequence just doesn't look very good. I don't like, this is more of a visuals thing, but just the movement and the speed and stuff just felt very weird to me. Like, and again, super different than Wonder Woman 84, or Wonder Woman 84 was super different than all of these movies. But after that sequence, everything Wonder Woman is great. I think it's fine.
I don't think that I'm ever going to go back and watch this again anytime soon, but next time I do, I need to start a count of how many times she goes to her go-to move of, slap her bracelets together and do a shockwave, because she used that a lot of times, like even more so than she would have in any of her solo movies. Let alone, I don't know why she didn't, start most fights with that move, considering how destructive it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on to, we'll save the fast for last. So let's move on to Ray Fisher, Cyborg. We talked about him a little bit already. Did anybody else have anything that we didn't say about Cyborg, or maybe his dad, or anything like that? We could talk about a little bit more detail about his story if we wanted to. Anything else we wanted to share?
I'm just glad they fleshed out the details of his like quote unquote origins a bit more in the Snyder cut than the original one, because I remembered watching Whedon's cut and it was just I wanted more of Cyborg. I wanted to know more about him because previously to either of these Justice League movies, the only Cyborg I know of is in the Teen Titans cartoon. And they kind of touch every now and again about him missing and having nostalgia for being fully human and just having an actual body to do things proper like. But I think that's all I know about him. So I felt starved of that knowledge with the Whedon cut. And I'm so glad they touched more on it in the Snyder cut. But again, I feel he should have had his own origin movie because of how involved it was for the Snyder cut.
Yeah, it's really great getting all this fleshed out and stuff. But you're right. A solo movie to introduce him might have been a better play, because instead we basically got, we've got a 4-hour runtime overall for this thing, but we've essentially got like, all right, here's a good 10 to 15 minutes of giving him his origin that you could have fleshed out into its own movie instead of just the brief, quick little thing trying to explain his powers of like, oh yeah, you're really good at hacking things now. Mm-hmm. Here's a bunch of money for this poor waitress. Enjoy. Oh, and you can maybe hack some nukes or not, whatever you want to do. It's cool. And it was really weird how they just also visualized that too. Like the whole, he looks normal in his head while he's being explained and trying to use his powers of hacking and stuff, but then is like cut to the outside and he's just his normal cyborgy self. Also, I don't fully understand his rewinding, fixing tape recorder power at the end. I don't think that's a power that they established in this that he would have had, let alone the fact that I'm pretty sure the tape recorder looked probably like not old timey, but I'm sure a lot of that probably was not stuff that was hackable. So I'm not sure how he put it all back together. Some of it probably was even plastic, not just metal. If you wanted to say he could manipulate metal, let alone the tape. It was a weird scene.
I was going to talk about that scene though, because it was one of my favorite moments of the movie though, in terms of this character's arc, because he destroys the tape, not listening to the words of his father as a father, because he takes what he thinks he only needs from his dad, which is what he can learn from him as a scientist, then destroys the tape. So while the power doesn't make sense, maybe they could have done that visually different. Like he could have picked up the tape and then manipulated the technology in his body to be able to play back the tape. Might have been something different, but I am glad that we do get to listen to what he does get to listen, and we get to listen to what his father said to him, and that it is played as the voiceover for the epilogue. I think was a really nice touch to kind of cap off his character development. I thought was really good.
He goes, he could go full Teen Titans Go cartoon and just turn into a boombox.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Because it'd be dumb. That's why not.
Oh, well.
Just like this thing was dumb.
All right. So who else we got? We're saving Flash for last. Is there anybody else we need to talk about? Oh, yeah.
Aquaman.
Aquaman. Yes. Jason Momoa playing Aquaman. We talked about a little bit about him too. Any other thoughts about Aquaman?
I do want to put out there, I love the character design that they have for Jason Momoa playing Aquaman, that he is a buff surfer kind of looking dude. You know, he looks like he belongs in the water.
So maybe he should have stayed there. Hi-yo.
Yeah, his attitude definitely needed some work and some fleshing out to make it more believable for how he was talking with Bruce Wayne and trying to deny everything. They needed to make it a bit more understandable why he would join in at the last minute after the mother box has stolen from Atlantia, whatever his town is called. I do really, really, really hate how every time he goes to jump back into the ocean and every scene that he does that, he always takes off his shirt and leaves it, which just makes me wonder, are there just all these shirts laying around the town that he's visiting that he could just like take off of a clothesline or something to put on while he's there, and then he just throws it back on the ground?
Yes, and then there's just a bunch of random women standing around to pick up said sweater or shirt and sing random songs.
Yes, and we'll see that in the Snyder Ultimate Super Duper 5-hour cut.
Oh, it's only going to take an hour to explain where all these shirts come from.
That's how long the next version of all these women singing will be.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick, actually, because we're on this section of the music. I was pulled out of the movie every single time he does this. He does it with Aquaman. He does it with Flash. He does it in a couple other places. I'm trying to scan my notes here to see where he did it.
I'm pretty sure Cyborg as well.
But there's just like all these moments where like the movie just kind of stops to like have us listen to this random song that at least I've never heard before. And it completely pulls me out of the movie. Like, talk about completely and absolutely unnecessary. I don't see how those scenes added any value whatsoever to the film.
Nobody can accuse Snyder of being super deep. I actually went back through it again because I briefly scanned some of your notes. You have it during the Lois getting coffee and visiting the Superman memorial scene.
There you go.
It's a song called Distant Sky by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. So among the lyrics, you have it, let us go now, my darling companion. And they told us our gods would outlive us, but they lied. So I kind of see that as like, again, Snyder's not being very subtle here. It's about Superman. Their god is dead and she's sad and moping and grieving, which is fine. We understand that. Maybe didn't need the song to kind of beat it in the head with us. You've got Aquaman going to the ocean, drinking his, I don't know, whiskey, alcohol. I don't drink. I don't know. Whatever. It was a bottle. Again, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, only this time, the song, There is a Kingdom. Lyrics include, there is a kingdom, there is a king. He lives without, he lives within. Kind of, I guess, in my mind, symbolizing like he doesn't want to go back to Atlantis. He doesn't want to deal with all that. He wants to save that for his own solo movie. Cha-ching! But, there's a king, lives without, lives within. He's going to be king someday, but he doesn't want it. Whatever. And then, yes, Flash saving Iris. Rose Betts singing Song to the Siren. I don't know. This song was a bit more of a stretch. There's a bunch of readings of it, something about unrequited love or love not known yet. I don't know. During the song at the end, it says something about holding you, and that's the point where he's holding Iris. Whatever. I got nothing on that. The only other song, really, during the end credits, we get another Snyder thing for Hallelujah. I don't want to rag on it, though, because apparently that was Snyder's daughter's favorite song, the daughter that committed suicide and, made Snyder back away from finishing the movie in the first place. The version that we have in the end credits is a cover by an artist named Allison Crowe, who apparently sung Hallelujah at his daughter's funeral. So, given the circumstances, I don't really want to rag on Snyder for his choice of putting Hallelujah in there.
No, and I didn't have a problem with that song in the movie, and it's at the credits too. And we do get that very touching for Autumn. It's been a while, and so I had kind of like, I don't mean this in like a forgettable sense, but I had kind of forgotten that like this was the whole reason for why he had to step back, which as a dad, I completely get. I don't even know like how he even mustered the energy to make the Snyder Cut after all of that, because I feel for me, if I was making this movie when that had happened, it would be extremely difficult for me to pick that up again to finish it, because it would have been served as a reminder of that loss. So kudos to him for the strength to do this in the middle, having suffered that loss. My heart as a dad goes out to him for sure. But just the rest of these songs, deep cuts, hidden meanings or not, it just felt completely out of place, like with the rest of the movie. You want to talk about Josstice League, Joss Whedon cut being tonally different from the rest of the Snyder films. This was tonally different for me than any of the Snyder films, I feel like.
This Snyder always has songs kind of like this. That's just a thing of his. What's a bit more tonally different for Whedon version is the rest of the score of the movie. And for the Whedon version, I don't know if it was Whedon, I don't know if it was the executives at Warner Brothers, whatever. They basically fired the guy that was going to do the music, who had worked with Snyder in the past, and instead brought Danny Elfman in. And what does Danny Elfman do? We get some musical homages to his previous Batman themes, and not his previous Superman theme, but the Superman from the 70s theme. And for this Snyder Cut version, they completely rescore the film with the guy that Snyder originally wanted to do it with. So no more random homages to previous DC films, which is fine, because again, it fits more tonally in with the rest of the Snyder movies.
I'm good with the score. It's just these 3 songs that feel very weird and out of place. So, are we done? Are we on to Flash now? Are we done with Aquaman?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Flash, played by Ezra Miller. I absolutely love this character. I absolutely love Ezra Miller's performance, and his portrayal of the character is perfect. My first experience with Flash was with the CW show, where we get, what is his name? Grant Gustin, I believe is his name, who plays Flash in the CW show. Very good Flash, is Barry Allen. Very good. And there was a lot of fan backlash over them choosing to hire Ezra Miller for the DCEU instead of him. He's cool with it. After seeing Ezra Miller's performance, not only in just Joss Whedon's cut, but also in the Snyder Cut especially, so glad they went with Ezra Miller. This portrayal of the character is so good. I love Nathan's pointing out that like Flash is like the audience here. That like awkward, out of place character, kind of like getting to play around in the superhero world with the rest of these superheroes is spot on. Everything about this character I love. Not to go too far into visuals, but the visuals all around Flash, everything except for what I'm about to go into, give me a second, I'll get there, is fantastic. But, and it's a big but, it's a big nonstop driver not paying attention semi-truck of a butt. That scene where he rescues Iris, just completely like just bad. I don't like it. There's not a lot that I like about that scene, if anything at all. Maybe the very beginning of it and the very end of it. You have the driver bending over to pick up a hamburger or something that he drops. He goes like a full city block without looking up. You're telling me he kept that truck straight on a city block? Nobody tried to cross the street. Nobody notices this truck just barreling down the road at what seems to be an illegal speed and didn't swerve and hit anything at all, just kept it perfectly straight? No, I don't think so. Then you have Iris pulling out into an intersection, not looking at the road because she's too busy checking out Barry Allen, some random dude that she bumps into walking out of a pet store. She's not wearing her damn seatbelt, and she's just going right into an intersection, probably running a stop sign. I haven't looked if there are stop lights or stop signs or who's at fault for what here. It doesn't matter. Both of these drivers, I'm sorry, deserve what was coming for them being so reckless. Also, suspension of disbelief, because that truck definitely would have crashed before it reached that intersection. But then we get this really cool part. Flash sees the action. He turns so quickly, his shoes rip apart and explode. Really neat. Again, the visuals here in Flash are great. Runs towards the window, and the window breaks because windows don't support Flash anymore. But we get a really neat effect with the glass bending and then breaking, and everything slowing down and stuff. All that stuff is great.
I don't know. I kind of thought that looked like on the lower end of the CG there, the way the window kind of warped and stuff.
I thought it was cool. I think it was more of an artistic thing than it was a visual thing. But anyway, all that looks great. But then he gets in front of Iris as she's floating through the air to her death, and he stops to basically check her out. And then not only does he check her out, but then he's also kind of creepily caressing her hair, and this is one of those moments where I'm not trying to go there, but like, why are you touching her without her consent kind of deal? Like, I get that you have to capture her out of there. You're about to save her life. You're about to capture her out of the air. You're going to have to touch her to save her. That's fine. That's not a problem. I'm not trying to stretch it that far. But like, there's some intention there. Like, you are caressing her hair or whatever, moving it off to the side because you are admiring her beauty when she's going to die. And I get that you're a superhero and you've got technically a near infinite amount of time to do this job, but I was like, no, I'm sorry, no. And then the freaking hot dog that he stops
Hot dog.
to pluck a hot dog out of the air and stick it in his pocket. And we get why when the scene ends, but still, like, the movie has time for this. I mean, it is 4 hours something long, but movie has time for this. Come on. It killed the scene for me. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Slow-mo, blah, blah, save the girl, car crashes, explodes. But I'm like, the touching and the hot dog and stuff, at least they redeemed it when he's sitting with the dogs and he's playing off the fact that this whole explosion just happened. And he's like, so I got the job, right? At least they kind of made me forget it quickly with that joke.
Hey, Robert.
What?
Is that a hot dog in Barry's pocket? Or is he just happy to see Iris? Hi-oh!
Mwah. Good night, everybody.
Either way, the Flash is a fantastic character, and I'm glad that we get a bit more of him in the movie. I love his humor. Again, Ezra Miller just knocks it out of the park with this character, especially towards the end, where the fact that he's basically the one that kind of has to, reverse time to keep the world from ending, I thought was super cool. And again, just makes me super amped up to see the Flash standalone movie.
Yeah, what was great about the Snyder version versus the Whedon version? The Whedon version presented Barry as maybe not being as sure of himself when it comes to his powers. The Whedon version, during the fight scene below Gotham Harbor, we had him, talking with Batman and being like, I don't think I can do this. And Batman having to psych him up to be able to, just save one person and then move on from there. None of that here. We get this opening scene with him and Iris, him saving Iris, showing that, yeah, he's got a pretty good handle on his powers. Maybe not complete mastery of it, but yeah, he knows his, time manipulation stuff, or knows that it can be possible that it gets a little wonky when he goes too fast. So it was nice that he was a bit more established in that. Other than that, yeah, he was kind of more or less the same. I don't know that I fully agree with Nathan when it comes to he's, the audience surrogate per se, considering we don't get anything from him until a little over an hour into a 4-hour runtime. Usually if you're going to have an audience surrogate, you're going to want to get them in there as soon as possible. But yeah, I don't know. He was fine.
Still a better job than the Phantom Menace did with an audience surrogate.
Oh.
Who do you consider the audience surrogate in Phantom Menace?
There is none, but they try to make it seem like, oh, it's Obi-Wan, oh, it's Anakin, they keep bouncing around and there never is one.
I suppose. So should we talk about, I guess, the villains now?
Yeah, sure. So primary big bad is Steppenwolf, like before. I like, again, this is kind of bleeding individuals, but we're talking about characters. So I did like his design in the Snyder Cut a lot more than the Whedon version. Not that the Whedon version was like horrible.
Oh, the Whedon version was terrible. It was just like he's a guy in like armor. That's it. This version of Steppenwolf, he's got all his random spikes that keep moving about and looks a lot more alien than just, oh, I'm a guy in old-timey armor.
Yes, with nothing to compare him to for sure. As his own standalone baddie with no other, other world ugly things to look at. I thought I was gonna say, like, I don't think it was good. I don't know that it was horrible. It was just another alien bad guy for me. But this one definitely stood out as what felt like belonged with the rest of the baddies that we see in Desaad and Darkseid. So he fit much more with the rest of the bad guys that we see. But I liked his design. I think the voice was better. The dialogue was better. I think the story around him was a little better, more fleshed out. We kind of get a little bit of an
Are you saying that you were not a fan of Whedon's interpretation of him and him just Steppenwolf just constantly going, "Mother, mother, mother"?
Was there a question in there somewhere?
He's asking if I guess, wasn't a fan of the Whedon version of Steppenwolf.
Yeah, no,
No,
Whedon,
I mean, I
Whedon
wasn't.
Steppenwolf was bad. Like
Yes, as a villain,
the thing with
it was bad.
Snyder Steppenwolf though that I don't fully understand is a lot of people are saying that they flesh him out a bit more, kind of give his motivations and all. Unless I missed it in the 4-hour runtime, we get calls to him, being a betrayer and stuff, but I don't recall specifically about what he did or did not do to betray Darkseid. Like I kept waiting for Desaad for it to pop up or him to pop up and be like, "Oh yeah, when we did that Earth invasion before, I kind of like stabbed him in the back or something, or I called in sick that day." But no, it's just I'm trying to redeem myself. For what? Tell us. You've got 4 hours. Just give us a line of saying what you did, please.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I was about to mention that too. That we get a little bit more of his story, but we don't know why he's in exile. So, we may never get that answer. He's dead now anyway. Spoiler alert. So I guess it doesn't matter. Other villains, we've got Darkseid. The introduction of Darkseid. Visually, I thought he was pretty cool. For a couple moments there, the visuals I wasn't completely sold on. He looked a little too, I mean, I get that these are all fictional characters and they don't exist, but it looked a little too fake for me. Like, I think one thing that I appreciate about Marvel's use of CGI is that it feels a little more grounded in reality. They use a little more artistic techniques to not make it blend in the world a little more. And there were a couple moments with Darkseid where it didn't feel that way. Like it really felt like I'm just staring at a big CG character.
Yes, Marvel's grounded in reality. All those giant purple people eaters that I know.
I mean, visually, like it feels like it's a part of that world. Whereas Darkseid, you put Thanos standing next to Tony Stark, and they feel like they are in the same world, so to speak. Where you put Superman next to Darkseid, and the Darkseid looks like just a big giant CG character that doesn't belong there. It just visually stands out as fake. But there were moments as the movie progressed later on where he looked better and better. And I feel that way again, jumping into visuals here a little bit, that overall the visuals in the movie did improve as it went on. It got better and better. Whereas at the beginning, the visuals felt a little weak, and then they got better and better as the movie went on. So I like Darkseid's appearance. I thought he was mysterious and menacing enough. I would have liked to have seen more. I was a tad bit disappointed at the end where we get Steppenwolf's death, and then we get Darkseid kind of just giving them all the stare down. He says, "We're going to do this the old way," and then no more Darkseid. I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more. Maybe he tries to go through the boom tube and they stop him kind of deal. But it was, what we got of him, I enjoyed.
Well, I mean, again, with this having been originally intended to be the start of a trilogy, they weren't going to do that for the first film. They were going to save that for the second and or third film.
I was confused by Desaad because he kind of just seemed like a secretary for Darkseid,
That's more or less right.
But then it's just like, okay, so I mean, like I get he's the secretary and he's organizing information and he's being a liaison between Darkseid and all of his other like people that are running around. But then I kept wondering, it's like, why does he look like freaking Hexus from Fern Gully?
Because Apocalypse is a rough place, man.
Okay. I kept expecting to hear Tim Curry start singing that song he does in Fern Gully.
Wait, but if Apocalypse is a rough place, what's Nathan's excuse?
I'm a rough place.
Tennessee, man. It'll do you in.
All right. So any other villains we'd like to speak of?
Oh, that one guy, Aquaman.
Haha, haha. We did miss a character, though, because he was so briefly in the movie, but they made sure to call him out. Martian Manhunter.
Oh, Martha Manhunter.
Martha?
I I was like, why are you saying Martha? Oh,
Well, you see, it's twofold. It's Martian sounds like Martha, and also during the movie, he shapeshifted into Martha Kent. So Martha Manhunter is appropriate both ways.
um, it was fine. It was neat to see him visually. This is going to sound weird. I think the CW did it better.
Honestly, he was fine until then. Later on, Snyder, in interviews, again, because he's been doing a lot of press after this came out, said, "Oh yeah, I originally wanted that end scene with him to be, the John Stewart Green Lantern guy, but studio wouldn't give it, so yeah, we just put Martian Manhunter there instead." Like, come on, we could have had John Stewart Green Lantern in there. I would have much preferred that. And I imagine if I go back and look at the scene again, I don't know that we get Bruce Wayne and Martian Manhunter talking in the same frame a lot. It seemed like it was a lot of the gonna talk over here, gonna talk over there, gonna talk over here. So I could easily have seen and they filmed it as if it was going to be John Stewart, and then it's like, well, I guess not. We'll just copy paste this other guy in there, and it still was really weird, like the whole him being Martha thing. Like, why does he need to get Lois off the bench? Why does he need to get her back in life and stuff? I don't fully understand it. And we have a 4-hour runtime. There should have been better usage of trying to explain something like this instead of having it randomly be there.
It does also make Lois showing up at the fight with resurrected Superman kind of happenstance, right? Like he didn't. I'm assuming he didn't know that they were going to bring him back to life, and he didn't. And if he did, he didn't. He could not have known that when they were going to do it, and then have that pep talk with Lois so that she would leave at that time to be there just in time for all of that to go down. So then it just makes you wonder if she had decided to leave 20 minutes later, what would have happened to Batman? If she would have gone 20 minutes earlier and then left, what would have happened to Batman?
For me, Martian Manhunter's appearance in the movie just felt more like they wanted not necessarily an Easter egg, but they just wanted to set the precedence for the character being in the universe so that they could do something with him later on in another film and just kind of introduce him here and give him a small bit. And it just didn't really feel all that necessary, as has been pointed out. But we have him in DCEU now. Yay.
All right. Well, then that covers about all the characters we felt like talking about. So let's move on to the visuals. I know for me, this was another very impressive marked improvement over the Whedon cut. I mentioned earlier, my only disappointment is that it felt like at the very beginning of the film, some of the visuals felt a little wonky, especially when things were in slow motion. Just some of the flaws stood out a little more. Things looked a little more fake. Every time there was like a slow-mo scene, just the way that it moved, you could tell that it either wasn't a real person or there were a lot of CG elements thrown in that just weren't animated correctly. I don't know if it was the way they were moving or, like I said, some of the details that just stood out as extra CG to me. But as the movie went on, it got better and better. We get the sequence with Darkseid, which looked pretty good, but again, Darkseid just looked a little too fake for me. And especially with like some of the CG blood. I get like there's some rules in Hollywood about how real the blood can look based on the rating and stuff, but like we already know the movie's going to be rated R. So why are we worried about what the blood looks like from that perspective? Like it could have looked a little more real. It just looked more like splashy water than it really did like thick, viscous blood. So it just, again, had that fake kind of blood look that they do purposefully in some movies to avoid an NC-17 rating or to avoid some of the horror elements. But movie gets better. As the story gets better and everything else gets better in the movie, the closer you get to the end, the visuals do get much, much better. And again, like I said earlier, everything with the Flash just looks absolutely amazing. Some of the visual detail and stuff is just incredible. I love where they're doing they did in the Whedon cut where he's jump starting the mother box by running really fast and kind of giving it a charge or spark, if you will, jump start. I like the added element that he's too late, but like kind of like on the fly reverses time ever so slightly to where you notice, kind of if you're paying attention, you notice, but they don't call it out specifically like they do later, where, I mean, he does mention where if he goes the speed of light, things start to get really weird with time, but like he doesn't say anything like he does towards the end of the movie, where he is intentionally like telling you he's about to reverse time. And I thought that was a really cool kind of like foreshadowing for what he was going to need to do later. And then when everything explodes and you see that Barry's kind of the last one, before he even says anything, you're like, do it, Barry, do it. Reverse time. We saw you do it earlier. Do it, do it, do it. And it was really, really cool. And the visual of that scene, reversing the time and everything, how he's like, it's cool. It's not like he's running so fast and then time just kind of reversed. And now here he is, whatever, 2 minutes ago, right? Because typical time travel trope is I'm going to go back to the moment in time I need to be in to then redo this moment. And they take that a step further, where he's not redoing the moment. He is rewinding time and changing his position in time just enough to be right where he needed to be the first time. And I thought that was a really cool, really different way to show time manipulation, especially around the Flash, that I at least don't recall seeing in any other film before. And I thought that was super cool. And also seeing how like he was like just on the edge, like how the ground and everything is reforming right as he steps down on it. Almost even he's in some moments he's stepping ahead of it, just ever so slightly. And then time is kind of like catching up, if you will, with him. And then he's taking another step and time is moving forward a little bit more. And the visual of like, then it's just really creepy looking, but like their bodies being reformed. Like you see, like, I was like, holy crap, Superman was obliterated. You kind of see him being, I mean, I figured for sure, I thought, because they kind of give you they do this whole premonition thing where it looks like the world was ending, but it looked more like it was just being terraformed, like quickly and instantly being terraformed. So I didn't get the initial impression. I was like, okay, Cyborg, dead. But I didn't imagine Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, like everybody else dead. But then when you see Superman being put together and the visual, how they put that together visually was just incredible. Like that was the centerpiece of the movie for me. I thought that was fantastic. The visuals in this movie were stunning. From the moment, I mean, for me, and I'll just share my final thoughts. From the moment Superman shows up, everything in the movie just takes off for me, especially the visuals.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't as super excited about the Flash time travel wonky stuff. It felt kind of similar to the old 70s Superman where, flies in reverse around the planet to kind of reverse things, sort of. Maybe that kind of same logic. It's not the traditional time travel like they sort of had in Batman v Superman when, Flash comes back to warn Bruce Wayne about something. That's sort of more of a traditional time travel-y thing. But, I don't know. The Flash stuff was okay. The only real visual thing that stood out to me, I think, that looked a little off was when Steppenwolf had his little mind scanner thingy. The first time I saw it, it looked a little, I don't know, purpley. I know it was more metallic and stuff, but I don't know. Whatever. When we saw it the second and third time in the movie, it looked better. So I don't know what made that specific one stand out. Other visual type stuff, we have way too many slow motion shots in this movie. I'm sure if we cut out the majority of it and just left it into, Flash super speed, which makes sense, slowing down, I'm perfectly fine with slow-mo for him. But if we took the rest of it and just actually, played it at normal speed, more or less, might cut down like 10, 15, 20 minutes, who knows, out of this whole runtime. Like there's so many things that don't need the slow-mo. We don't need to see Aquaman's hair wafting back and all the oceans just whooshing around him. We don't need slow motion of Lois Lane putting her coffee on the memorial to Superman, and etc. and so on. And I think the only other visual thing I was going to mention was, at first I thought I was going to be distracted by the movie is in, I believe it's the 4:3 format, as opposed to a traditional widescreen. And it's in the 4:3 format because that's how Snyder was going to have it if it was going to fit on like an IMAX screen. So it would make sense for that. And at first I thought it was going to be weird because in this day and age, we're all used to widescreen everything. But honestly, on my, I only have a 50-inch TV, and I thought it was fine. It didn't really actually bother me at all.
I'm glad you pointed that out because I want to talk about it specifically because that was the only visual thing that I really had a problem with. Not that I didn't get used to seeing 4:3 again. I grew up on 4:3 on VHS cassette tapes and everything like that. But I was disappointed that that was like the artistic choice for this movie was to do it on a standard format screen like that instead of the widescreen format. Having said that, I kept expecting it to be a situation like with Tron Legacy because I remember I saw Tron Legacy in theaters in 3D, and it was a wonderful experience despite all the bad stuff about that movie because it starts off with a message saying, keep your 3D glasses on. The first part of the film was meant to be viewed in 2D. And then, so the movie goes on and you forget you're watching the 3D version because you're just so get used to it. And then when the main character goes into the computer world, the 3D jumps out at you and draws you in. It was just such a wonderful experience getting drawn into the movie like that. I was expecting a similar situation with the Snyder Cut, that it started off with 4:3. And then at some point, maybe when Superman is brought back to life, maybe when the mother boxes combine and do their thing, that it would then expand out to 16:9 and then just kind of show you that, the world wasn't what you thought it was going to be or some kind of thing like that. And so I was disappointed that moment didn't happen. And I still question why 4:3 in this day and age. But, it was only like maybe every hour or so that I would stop and go, oh, wait, yeah, this is 4:3. And I just completely forgot it was in that format.
Yeah, when I was watching it and looking at it, it kept every so often I would look at the screen and I would keep asking myself, like, what am I missing here if this was widescreen? Like, is there anything visually that would make this scene look better if it were, if it stays in 4:3? And I really didn't see a whole lot there that would be desirable. I get that it would have come out in IMAX, but like, come on, dude, we're watching this at home. Nobody has an IMAX screen. We've all got wide screens. Just put it in widescreen format so we can all stop looking at black bars on the side of our screen. But, whatever. It's all right.
All right. Well, before we move on, my wife had decided that she did not want to watch this 4-hour cut after seeing the 2-hour Whedon version in theaters back in 2017. And I don't blame her, but she phrased a few questions that maybe we want to kind of look at briefly right now. First one, how much longer does it take for Superman to be inevitably resurrected, especially since anyone walking by the poster for this movie, back when it was in theaters, knew it was going to happen? Basically, in all the marketing, we see Superman everywhere. We know he's going to come back from the dead.
Story-wise, it's in the same place as it was before. Because we get a ton of extra character development stuff, it takes a while.
The Whedon version, it takes place at just after the hour mark out of a 2-hour runtime. This one was just after 2.5 hours out of a 4. So a little bit longer.
I feel like this question isn't necessary, if that makes sense. Because I agree, because of the marketing material, we knew Superman was going to come back to life in this film. And so the question should have been, how much better would the movie had been if he wasn't included in the marketing material, if Superman wasn't on the movie poster and that kind of stuff? That way it's a bit more of a surprise. But I mean, that's only speculation at this point. We couldn't know. But I mean, it took, as James pointed out with the timestamps, it took about the same amount depth into the film for it to happen. So it's kind of the same.
All right. Well, then, second question. This movie was made because executives wanted their own Avengers. How were they successful or unsuccessful in emulating the Marvel Avengers, kind of thing?
I mean, in the Snyder version, I'm gonna say more successful than the Whedon version, but not as successful as Marvel was at doing it. I think, looking at the Snyder Cut as a 4-hour film, it's just not the way to do it. Cyborg deserved his own movie, maybe not The Flash. We got Wonder Woman and Aquaman get their own movies and stuff, but I don't know. Like when I watch it, it didn't feel like like the Avengers did to me, because I wasn't as emotionally invested in these characters as I was with those movies. So I'm going to say mostly unsuccessful.
Yeah, because I remember with the Avengers, it didn't feel like Captain America 2, Hulk 2, as Robert and I discussed years ago when we first watched Avengers. And this one, I really had a hard time understanding why these 6 people would work as a team. I had a hard time believing they would work as a team. That cohesion just wasn't there. It was just plot device. These 6 people have to be in the movie, so they're going to work together, and they're going to work together and do their superpowers how they do it. And it totally wasn't a very successful emulation of Marvel's Avengers. And I don't think it should have been. Even if they had gone back and done a Cyborg movie first, I still think they shouldn't have been trying to redo a Marvel's Avengers. They should have done their own thing. I don't know what that should have been, to be honest. I'm not a writer. I don't do movies. It definitely came across as this is a DC version of Avengers, and it did not work very well in that regard.
Yeah, even with Whedon coming in to kind of add that, Avengers snark to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And finally, how did the introductions of the new characters feel in this version versus the theatrical release? Was it a misstep introducing them here instead of standalone films? I feel we've kind of already gone over this a bit.
Yeah. Cyborg deserves his own movie. Flash is okay. All right. So let's wrap up our final thoughts on the film. For me, I think I've said a lot. I liked the Snyder Cut. Is it better than the Whedon Cut? For sure. Did it need to be 4 hours long? Hell no. I would have liked to have seen what I wanted out of the Snyder Cut, and not that I had asked for the Snyder Cut anyway, but, when I'm hearing that he's going to make it, what I wanted out of it was give me the theatrical Snyder Cut. If you don't want to do a theatrical cut because it kind of feels like it would be a waste of time because maybe the differences are going to be more subtle that way and you wanted to include more, then like James was saying, give me, super cut edition, whatever the Batman v Superman extended version is called or whatever, give me a little bit longer extended cut of your theatrical your theatrical vision. Throw a little bit more, throw some extra stuff in there that if you had an extra 30 minutes to add onto the clock, throw in those things. I did not need 30 minutes of slow-mo. I did not need 15 minutes of Superman yelling himself to death, especially in a way that didn't make sense practically, scientifically, however you want to say it. And visually, it just also didn't look very great either. And all the slow-mo stuff that James mentioned, also you could cut a good 15, 20 minutes out of the movie if you played it, just playing it at normal speed, not even removing it, just play it at normal speed and you save a ton of time. Some of the singing scene from from Aquaman diving into the water, a lot of that, the musical scenes, cut out Flash inappropriately touching Iris and grabbing a hot dog out of the air. There's a lot of just some of the stuff that I'm going to call indulgence on Zack Snyder's behalf. So this movie minus Zack Snyder's indulgence, fantastic. I think this is leagues better than the Joss Whedon cut, even though I didn't think the Joss Whedon cut was terrible. This is definitely a superior film, and it makes me want more of the Snyderverse. And I hope that the studios see the fan. I mean, I haven't heard bad things about the movie, so I'm assuming most fans are enjoying it. So I hope that they see that as a win. And if he wants to make more, let him make more. People seem to like it, for better or for worse. Batman v Superman wasn't a total hit, but people liked it and they wanted his version of Josstice League, so they must like his films. So give me more Snyderverse.
The moral here is don't let the internet win. Don't let that toxic corner of the internet that was clamoring for the Snyderverse win. It's fine. Put it to bed. We don't need any more. The fact that Snyder came out and in post interviews for this and explained what his second and third movie would have been. Do you really want to see Superman's kid grow up, not have powers, and become the new Batman when old Batman dies? Do you really want that? Because that's what he said was going to happen.
Sure, but he could also change his mind.
Yeah, I don't know. The Snyder Cut, it was fine. It was better than the Whedon version, especially considering, it fits more tonally in with the rest of his films. Did it need to be 4 hours? No. Did we need all of the extra bits in the epilogue? No, certainly not. Am I going to watch this again? Probably not. Although I hear our next episode, we are going to take a look at Zack Snyder's Justice League Justice is Gray edition, the black and white cut, coming soon. That is a real thing that is happening.
Oh.
Not us looking at it, but a thing that's releasing.
Okay. On the off chance you have not seen Justice League 2017 or Justice League 2021, if you have 4 hours to kill, watch the Snyder Cut. If you want the Cliff Notes, watch the 2017 version where Joss Whedon directed it.
I don't know. I would probably still say find the extra time, or just fast forward to the part where Superman comes back to life and watch it from there.
Yeah. Or every time it gets to a slow motion bit, just press the ×2 button on your remote so it goes at normal speed.
You'll cut out about an hour and a half of the film right there.
Honestly, just go ahead and 2 times normal speed the whole thing. Why not?
Well, that wraps up our review. Let's move on to Terrible Times, a segment where we share things that we are into, watching, reading, enjoying, not enjoying, in between our episodes.
Terrible Times!
So for myself, I have mentioned this the last couple episodes. I've been playing Super Mario 3D World Bowser's Fury. I had been putting off Bowser's Fury to 100% 3D World. That is a lost cause. I realize that now.
So it's like I told you, you should just go to Bowser's Fury.
Yes, I took your advice, and after blowing away like 30 lives trying to finish this one world on the final level, I said, going to take a break from that, and I played Bowser's Fury, and I did not regret it. It is absolutely amazing. I wish that Nintendo would have made it a little bit longer. It was enough to be very enjoyable. I wish it would have just a little bit longer because it was fantastic. And just 3 words to summarize how surprisingly amazing fighting giant kaiju Bowser is Super Saiyan Cat Mario. Play this game. It is incredible.
Are there power levels over 9,000?
No, but there are power levels over 3 cat bells.
Meow. All right. Well, I have rewatched this last week the 2014 Godzilla American reboot. I don't know, whatever. It's a 2014 American Godzilla. I realized I had not watched it since I'd seen it in theaters, and since next time we're going to be looking at the Godzilla vs. Kong movie, I thought I would go ahead and give it a rewatch. The only thing that kind of sucked is it's not available on HBO, yet the sequel is, so I kind of had to, actually go and pay real money to rent it from Google. So, whatever. It wasn't a bad use of $3.99. Like I said, I had not seen it since it was in theaters. I still kind of, I don't know, I think it's fine. It's really weird in the sense of apparently it's more of a thing than I realized that there's not much actual Godzilla in Godzilla movies, even the previous Japanese ones. When I looked it up online, there's a couple different forums that actually, go through frame by frame and see what the runtime is for the giant monsters in those movies. And they only take up maybe about 10% of the runtime. So there's a lot of, human stuff in them. The main thing is those Japanese movies are usually more like about an hour and a half, as opposed to this Godzilla American was 2 hours. So it may have been, we still had, 10 minutes of Godzilla in the movie, but that extra half hour for the American means it seems like we have that much less in there. I don't know. Personally, I kind of would prefer more giant monster time in a movie. I think if I look back, maybe like Pacific Rim seems like it has a lot. I need to rewatch that too. That would be good. But yeah, I thought Godzilla 2014 was fine. My main other criticism of it is in all the trailers, we had Bryan Cranston presented as the main character in this. And he's there with his son, what's his name? Aaron Taylor Johnson or something? The Quicksilver guy.
Yes.
But like a half hour into the movie, Bryan Cranston dies, spoilers, and I don't know. I preferred his acting than everybody else's in the movie. But I don't know. It's worth a watch. I still now need to go back and watch the 2019 Godzilla King of Monsters movie to be all set for Godzilla versus Kong, which, again, we're going to look at in our next episode. So looking forward to that. Giant lizard versus giant monkey. Fight!
Going back on how late I am on watching things, TV shows, movies. A good buddy of mine found out recently that I had not seen Logan. So I watched that the past couple of weeks.
Wow.
For the first time ever.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. I kind of already, I didn't read reviews about it necessarily, but I knew that because of when it was supposed to happen in the Fox X-Men universe, that it was going to be like the death of Charles Xavier and the death of Wolverine, hopefully. And so I wasn't surprised when their scenes came around with it, they died. It was still a nice ride, and I'm glad that they did a R-rated movie to kind of like end their run of the X-Men movies, so to speak. So definitely worth a watch, real fun. Rated R, don't watch it with your kids. And yeah, so now that's another movie that I should have watched a long time ago, now under my belt.
And now you can watch it back to back with the Snyder Cut, both in the black and white versions, because there's also a black and white version of Logan.
I was gonna say, no, now I need to finally watch that zombie movie with cardio.
Zombieland?
Zombieland, yeah. I still have to watch that I've never seen.
You confused me there for a second because I'm trying to think, wait, cardio? Are you trying to think like Cardi B or something? Well, thanks for joining us this week for a review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. We'd like to know your thoughts, so please be sure to leave them in the comments below of this video, or if you're listening to us on your favorite podcasting app, you can just go to our Facebook page, search for This Is Going to Be Terrible Podcast. You can leave us feedback there, or you can shoot us an email at thisisgoingtobeterribleshow@gmail.com. No matter what, feel free to give us a like, subscribe, hit a bell, leave us a review, shout about us from the rooftops, which you're perched on like a Batman, whatever you'd like. We appreciate the feedback from you, our audience. Who knows, maybe you can get a shout out from us on our next episode or right now.
Like this comment from Zachary Hughes, Zachary H-Man on YouTube, I think is where he left it. I forgot the animated series exists. Oh, this was about the Sonic the movie. Sorry about that. I forgot about the animated series existed until just now, and thanks to Terrible, learned that Jaleel White was the voice of Sonic. The more you know. Also, I cannot stop laughing at Nathan doing the impression of the robot chicken. 11 out of 10 would watch again.
And he just did, probably. All right, well, that's our show. Thanks again for joining us. Catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Be good to each other out there.
Robert, I assumed you wanted to do it since it was your guy.
Oh, I mean, I don't have to be the guy that does it. Nathan should do it.
Okay, I'll do it.
No, he's got to save his vocal range for the